नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी. Reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, text number 14. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhabrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhabrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhabrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate.
Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrataha
namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate.
Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate.
Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya
nityayukta upasate.
Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate.
Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantasya dridhavrataha namasyantasya cha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate.
Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya
nityayukta upasate.
Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate.
Satatam kirtayanto mam yaschanta dridhavrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta
upasate. Synonym: Satatam, always. Kirtayantaha, chanting. Mam, me. Yatantaha cha, fully endeavoring also. Dridhabrataha,
yuktaha
with determination.
with determination.
Namasyantaha cha,
Namasyantaha cha,
offering obeisances.
offering obeisances.
Mam,
Mam,
unto me.
unto me.
Bhaktya,
Bhaktya,
in devotion.
in devotion.
Nitya yuktaha,
Nitya yuktaha,
perpetually engaged.
perpetually engaged.
Upasate,
Upasate,
worship.
worship.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Translation: always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Translation with repetition: always chanting my glories,
Always chanting my glories,
endeavoring with great determination,
endeavoring with great determination,
bowing down before me,
bowing down before me,
these great souls
these great souls
perpetually worship me
perpetually worship me
with devotion.
with devotion.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
The Mahatma cannot be manufactured by rubber stamping an ordinary man. His symptoms are described here. A Mahatma is always engaged in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. He has no other business. He is always engaged in the glorification of the Lord. In other words, he is not an impersonalist. When the question of glorification is there, one has to glorify the Supreme Lord, praising His holy name, His eternal form, His transcendental qualities, and His uncommon pastimes. One has to glorify all these things, therefore a Mahatma is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who is attached to the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Brahma Jyoti, is not described as Mahatma in the Bhagavad Gita. He is described in a different way in the next verse. The Mahatma is always engaged in different activities of devotional service as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing and chanting about Vishnu, not a demigod or human being. That is devotion. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, and remembering Him. Such a Mahatma has firm determination to achieve at the ultimate end the association of the Supreme Lord in any of the 5 transcendental rasas. To achieve that success, he engages all activities, mental, bodily, and vocal, everything in the service of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. That is called full Krishna consciousness. In devotional service, there are certain activities which are called determined, such as fasting on certain days, like the 11th day of the moon, Ekadashi, and on the appearance day of the Lord, etc. All these rules and regulations are offered by the great acharyas for those who are actually interested in getting admission into the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental world. The Mahatmas, great souls, strictly observe all these rules and regulations, and therefore they are sure to achieve the desired result. As described in the second verse of this chapter, this devotional service is not only easy, but it can be performed in a happy mood. One does not need to undergo any severe penance and austerity. He can live in this life in devotional service, guided by an expert spiritual master, and in any position, either as a householder or a sannyasi or a brahmachari, in any position and anywhere in the world, he can perform this devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus become actually a Mahatma, a great soul. Thus ends the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So I welcome you to this wonderful Bhagavad Gita session. Bhagavad Gita is one book which is considered to be the essence of all the Vedic literatures. Sarvo Upanishado Gabho Dogdha Gopala Nandanaha. Sudhir Bhakta Partha Vatsa Sudhir Bhakta Dugdha Gitamratam Mahat. Sarva Upanishada Gabho. If the entire Upanishads is compared to a cow, Sarva Upanishada Gabho, Dogdha Gopalanandana, and you have a milkman who's Lord Krishna. The most important thing in the cow is the miracle product called milk, right? And the milk is produced from the cow, and that milk is being milked by Krishna. Sarva Upanishada Gabho Dogdha Gopalanandana Partha Vatsa Sudhir Bhakta. The first milk, the first right and the milk is that of the cow, the calf. And the calf is Arjuna, who has heard this. And after that, what remains? The nectar, that is for us to relish. And in that nectar of Bhagavad Gita, which is given to us by Krishna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is considered to be the most confidential knowledge. When imagine our glory, our good fortune, that we get a chance to hear about the Bhagavad Gita, not just Bhagavad Gita, those of you who are coming here for once or something occasionally, you're getting a chance to hear the most confidential knowledge in that nectar of, the essence of all Vedic literatures. Very, very fortunate. And that too, in that most confidential knowledge, you get a verse like this, which says, Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhabrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. Very wonderful verse. And if you have never read Bhagavad Gita, or if you have read Bhagavad Gita, either case, you want to increase your appreciation for Bhagavad Gita, your understanding, read verses like this and take the purport of Srila Prabhupada and see how he beautifully explains this. A mind-blowing purport. So let us see, what is this verse talking about? We need to have a little bit of context to appreciate this verse. If probably, we speak on this verse for days, still we will not be able to finish. So even if we'll run out of time, whatever we will discuss, it will be very meaningful. So pay attention, very interesting verse which Krishna is talking about. As this is mentioned, this is the most confidential knowledge, which is the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. To understand a little bit of context what is going on, in the previous verse, we had this verse which was there in the last class. Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritim ashritaha bhajanti ananya manaso gyatva bhutadim abhyayam. Krishna is talking about a species of human being called Mahatma. By the way, we all know one Mahatma. And at least one Mahatma we all know, right? Suresh, any guess who's that Mahatma that we know? Mahatma Gandhi, right? At least one Mahatma we know. So, very interestingly, the definition of Mahatma, it is not about some popular sentiment that somebody has done a lot of wonderful activities. Now it is time to recognize the activities done by that man and let's give him a title like Mahatma. There is a particular definition as per the Vedic scriptures who can be considered as Mahatma. And in this verse, in the 13th verse, in the previous verse, Krishna says, Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritim ashritaha bhajanti ananya manaso gyatva bhutadim abhyayam. So Mahatmanastu mam partha. I'll tell you some beauty of Sanskrit language and especially the composition of Bhagavad Gita. Just to give you a feeling what beautiful composition and how Krishna speaks something which is logically. People think that Bhagavad Gita is some erratic dialogue which is happening, not connected, not true at all. Very, very systematically these arguments are brought. Pay attention to this word tu here. Mahatmanas tu mam partha. Sometimes you may wonder these words are filler words. Maybe it is not following the proper rhyming, so they have added some cha, tu, like that. But not true. The word tu can make the whole thing, change the meaning, and we will just see that. So I'll come to that. Just see what he is telling about the definition of Mahatma. Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritim ashrita. Ashrita means to take shelter. So he is telling Mahatmans are those who have taken shelter of my daivim prakritim. Daivim is the divine nature. One who has taken shelter of the divine nature of mine, O Partha, he is considered to be a Mahatmanas. What do they do, these Mahatmas? Bhajanti ananya manaso gyatva bhutadim abhyayam. Ananya manaso. The words that are chosen by Krishna are they are very carefully chosen. They are not randomly picked. Bhajanti ananya manaso. Anya is other, ana anya. So no other thought, only one single pointed thought of worshipping Krishna. Bhajanti ananya manaso gyatva bhutvadim abhyayam. Knowing that I am the imperishable, I am the creator of the Lord, Mahatmanas are always taking at shelter of the Daivim Prakritim and they are worshipping me, bhajanti. Now I told about the word tu. So the translation of this verse is, O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Why the word tu is significant? To appreciate that, you have to see the verse before this, the 12th verse. The 12th verse of Bhagavad Gita says, Moghasa, Mogha Karmano, Mogha Jnana Vichetasaha, Rakshasim Asurim Chaiva, Prakritim Mohinam Shritaha. This verse is something which every individual who has taken birth in this material world should understand and should appreciate, because this is not spoken by Arjuna or not by any other personality in Bhagavad Gita who's mentioned, like Sanjaya, Dhritarashtra, or anybody else. No, it is spoken by the Supreme Lord. And the Supreme Lord is using this word Mogha 3 times here. Moghasa, Mogha Karmano, Mogha Jnana, Vichetasaha. And mind you, the word Mogha means baffled. We are baffled in our desire to become happy in this material world. Moghasa, Mogha Karmano. People are doing so many activities, thinking that this is going to give them pleasure, happiness, and they're busy doing that. They'll be baffled. Moghasa, Mogha Karmano, Mogha Jnana. Even the pursuit of knowledge in this material world is baffling. Vichetasa, this is bewildering. Why? Because Rakshasim Asurim Chaiva Prakritim Mohinam Shritaha. There is a nature of the Lord which is called the Rakshasi Prakriti or Asurim Prakriti. So if somebody has taken shelter of Asurim Prakritim Shritaha, if you have taken shelter of Asurim Prakritim Sitaha, then there is Mohinim, you are actually bewildered. Vichetasaha, again the same word, same meaning. And Moghasa, baffled. So these are ordinary people who take shelter of the external energy of the Lord, and in their endeavor, in their activities, in their desire, in their pursuit of knowledge, they are all baffled. But there is another one, but, that tu is Mahatmanas. Mahatmanas tu mam partha, daivim prakritim ashrita. They take shelter of the internal energy of the Lord. There are 3 energies of the Lord primarily. One is called the divine or the internal energy. The other one is called the external or the Asurik Prakriti or the Rakshasim Prakriti, Rakshasim Prakriti. And in between these 2 energy, there is the Tatastha Sakti, which is all of us, the marginal energy. We have a free will to come under the shelter of the internal energy, or we have a free will to come under the shelter of the external energy. The moment we come under the external energy of the Lord, Moghasa, Mogha Karmano, Mogha Jnana Vichetasaha. All our activities, desire, our knowledge, everything is baffling because we are bewildered. But whereas if you take shelter of the internal energy of the Lord, then you can become a Mahatma. What is the symptom of a person who is taking shelter of the divine energy of the Lord? Bhajanti ananya manaso. He is engaging in devotional service with one pointed attention. That is the verse. This is the context. Let's see, actually one may question, okay, what do you mean by engaging in devotional service? Because if I have to become Mahatma, which you are saying such a great thing, by taking shelter of the internal energy of the Lord, what does it mean? That is what Krishna explains in this verse. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhabrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. If somebody says Bhagavad Gita is confusing, I'm not able to understand. Maybe Bhagavad Gita is meant for some esoteric scholars who have done research in Sanskrit. They can only understand. I mean, probably you can't find any other Vedic literature, or for that matter, any literature cutting across any religion which is so clear and direct. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhabrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. Actually, to become a Mahatma is not difficult. And as Prabhupada begins the purport, we can't rubber stamp someone. Black t-shirt, put a black this thing behind him, Mahatma. You go out of this temple, people will see, Mahatma is coming from this side. Sometimes people different things on their t-shirt. I lost my heart in Vrindavan. Really, you lost your heart in Vrindavan? Where did you lose your heart? Actually, the heart is filled with all kinds of materialistic desires and aspirations. You can't put some rubber stamp and say that I have done something or achieved something. Mahatma is an internal thing. There is an internal transformation which needs to happen. And the characteristics of that is given in this verse. There are 5 things which Krishna mentions, which a Mahatma does. Satatam mam kirtayantaha. Mind you, Prabhupada in the purport says something very interestingly, which is worth paying attention in the first purport, in the first paragraph. Mahatma cannot be manufactured by rubber stamping an ordinary man. His symptoms are described here. Mahatma is always engaged in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. He is always engaged in chanting the glories of the personality of Godhead. The word kirtayanto can be broken down into 3 parts. Somebody who is engaging in japa, which is nothing but doing the meditation by taking the names of the Lord alone. Or you can come together and you can participate in kirtan. Or you can talk about the glories of the Lord, His instructions, His pastimes. Everything is kirtayanto. But the word that is used before that is satatam. Satatam means always. We all have a tendency, we all have an urge to speak. That is why Rupa Goswami says, Vacho Vegam. He starts his nectar of instruction with that first thing which is hitting on the nail, saying that we should control our urge to speak. How should we control our urge to speak? Satatam kirtayanto mam. So one has to engage this power of speech, either in chanting the names of the Lord or glorifying His activities. If you recollect in Bhagavatam, where Parikshit was cursed to die in 7 days, and he goes before Sukadev Goswami, the most exalted personality and transcendentalist, and he asks this question, what should a man do when he is about to die in general? And in specifically when he is about to die, what should he meditate, what should he do, and what should he do in general throughout the life? Does anybody know what is the answer which Sukadev Goswami gives? What is the verse? Etan nirvidyamananam ichhatam akuto bhayam yoginam nripa nirnitam harer namanu kirtanam. Very powerful verse. Etan nirvidyamananam. Nirvidyamananam means whether you are falling in a category where you don't have any material desires, or maybe you are falling in a category where you have only material desires. Ichhatam. Etan nirvidyamananam ichhatam akuto bhayam. Akuto bhayam is a very beautiful expression in Sanskrit. Kuta means doubts and bhaya means fear. Whether you are having doubts and fears in your heart, whether I should take up to this or not. Etan nirvidyamananam ichhatam akuto bhayam yoginam nripa nirnitam. This is ascertained by all the transcendentalists, and this is the most successful way of engaging one's activities. And what is that? Harer namanu kirtanam. Kirtanam is very powerful. So Krishna says the first thing, Satatam mam kirtayantaha. Prabhupada writes that chanting the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, the personality of Godhead. In other words, he is not an impersonalist. Another very interesting thing, if you pay attention to this verse closely, the word mam is used how many times? Anybody who can see more than 3? Anybody who can see more than 4? 4? 4, okay. Anybody who's saying anything different than 4? 2, 3? Saffron? 3, okay. White? 2? I mean, sometimes our truth is so subjective. By the way, sometimes we see that if we see more, probably that will be the answer. Like, sometimes, they'll give you, find out the differences. You'll find 3, then you'll be thinking the answer should be 3, but you see that 10 or 12 are there. Array, I saw fully closely and it should be 3, how come it is 12? Then they'll point out here and there and like this. So even though 4 you saw somewhere, but actually the answer is 2. But very interestingly, Krishna is telling Satatam Kirtayanto Mam Yadantascha Dridhavrata Namasyantascha Mam Bhaktya Nitya Yukta Upasate. There are 2 Mam only. But that Mam is something which is Prabhupada is pointing out in the purport at the beginning, that Mahatma is not someone who's an impersonalist. Because you cannot glorify something which is Nirakar. What are you appreciating? Some void. There is so much of void in this in this place. Of course, we can see this has got a form. Somebody can appreciate that there are nice flowers, there are deities, there are so many things. But somebody comes and says, I'm appreciating the void. What are you appreciating? Void, the space that is there inside. What can you appreciate the void? Except for the fact that probably it is filling the space, one word that you can use. You can't glorify. But if I have to glorify someone, maybe I can say he's wearing a nice t-shirt, he's having a nice specs, his hairstyle is good. I can go on talking about it, right? That means he's a person. So Prabhupada is saying, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. Krishna is telling, I'm a person. I'm not some impersonalist. So a person who's really a Mahatma, he cannot be an impersonalist. He's always engaged in the glorification of the Lord, and glorification is always possible for a person. When the question of glorification is there, one has to glorify the Supreme Lord. I remember there was a nice conversation which had happened once when a reporter came to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was asked, Prabhupada, do you believe in God? Prabhupada said, yes, of course. So then that person, the reporter asked, do you believe in a form of the God? Prabhupada said, yes, the God has a form. So then Prabhupada puts a counter question to him, saying that, what about you? Well, Prabhupada, I believe in an impersonal creator. So Prabhupada said that impersonal creator is an oxymoron. If there is a creation, means you are saying, creator, that means he has already one characteristic, the ability to create. He cannot be impersonal. Actually, sometimes people don't realize some of these very fundamental truths, and they think in their mind, maybe some impersonal thing, there is some power, some energy, but he doesn't have a form. Krishna is clearly telling, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. Mam, Kirtayanto Mam. Yatantascha Dridhavrata, Namasyantascha Mam Bhaktya, Nitya Yukta Upasate. So this is the first one. Then he says about Yatantahacha. Then he talks about Dridhavrataha. And then he talks about Namasyantascha. And then he talks about Nitya Yukta. 5 things Krishna says. And then he says, Mam Upasate. One should worship me, because the previous verse, Bhajante Ananya Manaso. How should one worship me? That how part is explained, elaborated in this verse, with these 5 things which Krishna is telling. I'll go a little close, I'll go a little fast. You have any questions anywhere, you can stop, or we will have Q&A at the end. The first thing is Satatam Mam Kirtayantaha. Satatam Mam Kirtayanta. As I was mentioning, actually Prabhupada's purport, if you see, he is talking about 2 things primarily in this purport, out of this 5 that I mentioned. First thing, Satatam Mam Kirtayantaha, and one very important thing which we will spend time today. Satatam Mam Kirtayantaha, that we have to chant always. Now, a person may think in his mind, how will I chant always? कितना घंटा खाना बनाने में कितने जाता है टाइम? Stray. Whole day. कितना घंटा खाते हो? 2.5 hours खाने में चला जाता है, okay. और daily ablutions वगैरह जो भी है, bathing and stomach clearing and all, how much time? Okay. सोने में 7 hours. So 7 plus 2.5 hours for 2.5 hours for eating is a long time actually, but we will take that. And 2 hours for ablutions, right? So 7 to 9 plus 2, 11 hours are gone. How much time you work? 10 hours? 21 उसी में हो गया. बाकी 3 घंटा बचा. वो 3 घंटे में जपा कितना? Half an hour? 1 hour, okay. One and a half hour you have, which you are doing something else. But Krishna is telling Satatam Maham Kirtayanta. How do we understand? How can we chant always? So we have to see our acharyas. There is a very beautiful verse which comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It says, Nadesha niyamas tatra, nakala niyamas tatha, nochis tado nisedhascha, Shri Harer Namni Lubdhakaha. Very nice verse. Na desha niyamas tatra. Actually, what does it mean to chant always the names of the Lord? Means, if tomorrow you get shifted from here to another place, say for some reason you are transferred to South Africa. So there is no such obstacle, or there is no such bar that only in US, in Boston I can chant, but if I go to some other country I can't. Na desha niyamas tatra. There is no niyama. The verse of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Sikshastakam, Tatrarpita niyamita smaranena nakalaha. There is no rules and regulations. Any place you go, anywhere you go, you can chant. Na desha niyamas tatra, na kala niyamas tatha. It is not like only in the morning time I have to chant, other time I may not chant, it is not good, it is bad. None of those things. So when it is mentioned satatam, it is referring that there are no rules and regulations, no barrier in terms of the place, no barrier in terms of the circumstances. Under any circumstances I can chant the names of the Lord. Whatever time I am conscious, even if I am doing some activities, like the example which is given of Yasoda when she was churning the butter. While churning the butter, she was busy singing the glories of Krishna. Just because she was singing the glories of the Supreme Lord Krishna, even though the activity was a material, mundane one of churning, but that activity became transcendental. We may be doing some household chores, we may be doing something, but we can absorb our mind in singing or chanting the names of the Lord. So satatam mam kirtayantaha. Second one is yatantaha cha. Anybody knows what is the meaning of the word yatantaha? No. Endeavoring, acha, good. Did you see the answer or? Okay, very good. Endeavoring. It's a very important thing. Devotional life is not some sentiment. It's not some बैठ जाओ आज क्या करेंगे भजन क्या करना है भजन में बैठे रहेंगे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे. Even though it is simple, it is not, it looks simple, it's not simple. But that also is not what is expected, that you sit and just hare Krishna you do. You have to do some efforts, you have to put some endeavor. Krishna repeatedly in the pages of Bhagavad Gita discourages about laziness, about lethargy. Bigata jvaraha, that 3.30 he says, Bigata jvaraha. Give up this lethargy and engage in my devotional service. The word yatantaha, it comes from the word yatan. Yatan means to do endeavor. So yatantaha cha means if you have to do endeavor, then laziness doesn't find a place. They are mutually exclusive. If you are lazy, that whatever time you counted, 11 hours becomes more, then there is no time for devotional service. You have to endeavor in devotional service. The third thing that Krishna is telling is Dridha Brataha. If you see the purport of Prabhupada, the purport actually first two paragraph is talking about Mahatmas who's engaged in chanting the names of the Lord always, and the next two paragraph is only talking about becoming Dridha Brata. This is actually the game changer. People do come and take up to devotional service with all good faith, but they lack the intensity. They give it up because they are not determined. What is this Dridha Brata? What is the importance of determination? This is something which always has intrigued me, and I've done some research in this. I will share this wonderful thing actually. If somebody is determined in his life to practice devotion, what happens? So the next half an hour we'll spend, or 20 minutes, whatever we have, on this one particular aspect, Dridha Brata. Even I don't know if I'll be able to finish. But there are those other two things, Namasyantas and Nitya Yukta, which are also very important. But let's see this, where it goes. I'm going to talk about the 6 different aspects of determination. What is the meaning of the word determination? How Krishna's determination is absolute. This part, even though I have mentioned, I will not cover because it is slightly, it requires a little more different understanding, but something which is relevant for us. I'll talk about the importance of the quality of determination. I will talk about how determination never goes in vain. Determination in different modes. The reasons we are not determined. and how to become determined in devotional service. Even though they are 7 in number, the second one I'll not talk. So we will have 6 things. What is the meaning of the word determination? Let's see this. Sometimes when people are asked, what do you mean by determination? Make up your mind. Yeah. One common answer, if you search, you will find in Google, determination means to sit at one place with closed eyes. कुछ भी हो जाए, हटूंगा नहीं यहाँ पे, बैठा रहूँगा आज. As I'm made of this mind, I've determined, I will do some meditation or something, I'll close my eyes and I'll sit. But Prabhupada actually gives the definition of determination in the context of devotional service very nicely. Any person who observes regulative principles and fulfills his promise by practical activity is called determined. Any person who observes the regulative principles. What are the regulative principles that we promise to follow, Shrey? Correct. So any person who observes regulative principles. Easy? Difficult? Easy. It's not difficult. But the conditioning of the spirit soul in this material world always pulls him, always drags him. No meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling. These are the 4 pillars of dharma. When we break any of these regulative principles, then the dharma collapses. So any person who observes regulative principle and fulfills his promises by practical activity. You have to do some practical devotional service. You committed that you would do, but you don't show up. You are sleeping, you are doing something else, you are busy, you are doing some things. No, you have to fulfill your promise. It's called determined. Let's go further. There was the second point which was mentioning about Krishna, that how Krishna's determination is absolute. I want to just give you a few examples of this. What is Krishna's determination? In case of Krishna, we know that Krishna fulfills his vows by doing some practical activity. Some examples of this. Draupadi. When Draupadi called out, "Hey Krishna, hey Madhava," immediately Krishna appeared and supplied unlimited clothes. To save Draupadi, he personally went. To save Gajendra, he went himself. Thus, he engaged in some practical activity to keep his vows to protect the devotees. In the Nectar of Devotion, there is a mention of another incident, very interesting incident. Do you know that Krishna fought with Indra? Do you know this? Those of you. Have you ever heard of? Very interesting to know. Krishna had a fight with not some demons, with Indra. You know this? Mataji, कृष्णा इंद्र के साथ फाइट किया था, पता है? कौन सा? नहीं, फाइट मारा पूरा. गोवर्धन के टाइम पे मारामारी नहीं हुआ था, वो आके सरेंडर कर लिया. I mean, understood his mistake and he fell down. Real fight, full like. Let's hear from Nectar of Devotion. In the Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada says, one Satyabhama, one of Krishna's queens, wanted the Parijata flower in Indra's kingdom. Parijata flower grows in heavenly planets, very beautiful, fragrant. One of the queens of Krishna is Satyabhama, and she wanted this flower. So Krishna promised to deliver it, but Indra refused to part with his Parijata flower. Sometimes Indra gets puffed up, doesn't realize who Krishna is, and feels he is the king of the heaven, he has got all the powers. I'll not give, said like this. So therefore there was a great fight with Krishna and the Pandavas on one side and all of the demigods on the other. Ultimately Krishna defeated all of them and took the Parijata flower which he presented to his queen. So in regard to that occurrence, Krishna told Narada Muni, "My dear great sage of the demigods, now you can declare to the devotees in general and to the non-devotees in particular that in this matter of taking the Parijata flower, all the demigods, the Gandharvas, the Nagas, the demon Rakshasas, the Yakshas, the Panagas tried to defeat me, but none could make me break my promise to my queen." So another name of Krishna is called Satyavrata. If he takes a promise, it is never broken. Interestingly, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also makes a promise. What is that promise that Krishna makes? That he says, "Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati." He says that his devotees will never be vanquished. So a sincere devotee who's always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord should know for certain that Krishna will never break his promise. He will always protect his devotees in every circumstance. Very powerful. Somebody may take up to this process of devotion, may have some fear. क्या होगा पता नहीं, छोड़ दिया घर बार जो भी है, इतना उसका 3 घंटे में से 1.5 घंटा दे रहा है already. And maybe his friends will be saying, "Arey, what kind of a person you are? Just hardly 30 plus and 1.5 घंटा अपने पास है, क्या हो रहा है?" You may think like that, but here Krishna's promise, "Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati." Let's move on. Actually, this is a very interesting topic if you pay attention. So, what is the importance of the quality of determination? I've got some. This is one of my favorite topics. I like the word determination and how it is such an important thing in our devotional life. So this is all some excerpts from various parts of Srimad Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada's writing. Now we all know about the teachings of Lord Kapila, right? In that conclusion of that book, Prabhupada very nicely he writes, there are many contaminations within the heart, and the people in this age are engaged in many sinful activities: illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. You just go around anywhere you want to go randomly, you go and talk to people, interact with people, you'll find all of them, majority, are busy with these 4 activities. Illicit sex. I mean, illicit sex is something which has become so rampant. People, even though they are, married, they look for extramarital affairs, they go for somewhere else, they're not satisfied. Meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. This is what is the symptom of Kali Yuga. The whole world is revolving about these things. Yet, despite this, we have to spread this Krishna consciousness movement. There may be many obstacles, but they can all be transcended by Krishna's mercy. We only have to be determined in our devotion. The rest will follow. This is the essence of Lord Kapila's instruction to his mother. You know how easy it is to go and tell people, continue. मीट ईटिंग हो रहा है ना, चलाओ दबाओ और जाओ, इधर खुला है नया वाला, ये करो. People also will feel happy. Or you have some booze party, invite people, you'll get hundreds of people coming in. चलो पियेंगे, then some loud music and people will dance. You tell them come to a temple and you bring them, somehow they come, and then you say no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. Though slowly people will start going away. भैया ये कहाँ ले आया मेरे को? But this is what Prabhupada is saying. There may be many obstacles, but they can all be transcended by Krishna's mercy. If we have Krishna's mercy, we can transcend it. But what is required? We only have to be determined in our devotion. The determination in devotion. The rest will follow. This is the essence of Lord Kapila's instruction to his mother. With this, we can understand how much important is the quality of determination. We have heard the word Diksha. Right? Some of you are trying to aspire to become take Diksha, initiation. The word Diksha, Prabhupada is writing, means, the word Dikshit means a person who is determined. We take, this word determination or the initiation so cheaply. Now I become one initiated devotee, my name has changed. Some Dasi, some Dasa, so and so Dasa, so and so Dasi. Life में हो गया. क्या हुआ? अभी प्रभुपाद ने एक्सेप्ट कर लिया हमको. बस कहानी खत्म. नहीं, कहानी तभी शुरू होता है. The word Dikshit means a person who is determined. If you have become a disciple, if you have taken initiation, first symptom is you are determined. An initiated devotee means a determined devotee. We are determined to observe certain rules and regulations and to follow certain principles. In the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, who is dear to him? Sa eva ativa priyaha. He is more dear to me. He is more dear to me. There is one word which is used there. It's called dridha nishchaya. One of the important qualities in that is dridha nishchaya, meaning one who is engaged in devotional service with determination. This is not a hanky-panky thing. This is not like based on my mood. Sunday 6 बजे जाएंगे. आज लेकिन मूड नहीं हो रहा है. श्रुति रह जाता है. क्या बोलते हो? श्रुति बोलती है हाँ बढ़िया है. स्वामी देव ने आया जो भी पति देव. आज तो मन नहीं है, मानते हैं आज पूरा बारिश हो रहा है, ये हो रहा है, रह जाता है. मैं बनाता हूँ गरम पकौड़ा, खत्म कहानी. No, actually it requires dridha nishchaya. One of the important qualities in that is dridha nishchaya. We all know about the 6 principles of surrender, right? Where the first thing that comes is anukulyasya sankalpa. The word sankalpa means determination. I should be determined to find things which are favorable for my devotional service. There is a determination aspect. मैं तो दूर रहता हूँ bro. किधर? हार्टफोर्ड कनेक्टिकट. अच्छा तुम किधर से? मैं टुक्सबेरी से आता हूँ, चला जाता हूँ जल्दी जल्दी. 1-1.5 घंटा लगता है. हम तो आते हैं WPI से प्रभु, कैब वैब नहीं मिलता है. No, you make your situation favorable. 6 principles of surrender. These are real principles. The first principle is anukulyasya sankalpa. Accepting things which are favorable to our devotional service. And the word sankalpa again means that we should be determined that we will accept only those things which are favorable to devotional service. And pratikulyasya varjanam. बच्चे हैं मेरे, स्कूल में प्रोग्राम है, those things we can't miss. But when it comes to हाँ भगवद गीता नो, आज तो मेरा सर्विस नहीं है टेम्पल में, कौन जाएगा सुनने के लिए? Second principle is that we should be determined to reject things which are not favorable to devotional service. What is the point doing all those things which are really not helping me in advance in devotional service? I should have that determination to reject. I should have the determination to accept. Sankalpa and Vikalpa. Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjanam. In the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam, it's a very beautiful purport of this pastime of Dhruva Maharaj when he went back to home, back to Godhead. In that section of determination, in that particular purport, Prabhupada writes, this is 4872, we should always remember that to become a bona fide devotee of the Lord is not an easy task. But in this age, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, it has been made very easy. Actually, we always forget this. We are trying to achieve something which is the highest of goals that one can aspire to. And it is the most difficult. Maybe some people think of going to IIT, cracking some law exams, or writing CAT exam for many years. We don't get success. Far difficult than those is, to become a devotee, to go back home, back to Godhead. Very difficult. So we forget about that. And we also don't realize that, by Chaitanya's mercy, somehow that goal that we are trying to aspire has become easy. But still there is something which is very important, which is needed. If we do not follow even the liberal instructions of Lord Chaitanya, how can we expect to discharge our regular duties in devotional service? It is not possible in this age to follow Dhruva Maharaj in his austerity. We cannot do that. But the principles must be followed. We should not disregard the regulative principles given by our spiritual master, for they make it easier for the devotional, for the conditioned soul. The moment we violate those 4 regulative principles or our regular vows of chanting a particular number of rounds, then following devotional service becomes difficult. It's a fact. It is a given thing. If somebody is lax in finishing his rounds every day, if somebody is lax in following the 4 regulative principles, in the heart it is very difficult to remain engaged in devotional service. As far as our ISKCON movement is concerned, we simply ask that one observe the 4 prohibitive rules, chant 16 rounds, and instead of indulging in luxurious eating for the tongue, simply accept prasad offered to the Lord. As far as possible, we should accept simple foodstuff just to keep the body and soul together to execute devotional service. It is our duty to remember always that in comparison to Dhruva Maharaj, we are insignificant. We cannot do anything like what Dhruva Maharaj did for self-realization, because we are absolutely incompetent to execute such service. But by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, we have been given all concessions possible for this age. So at least we should always remember that neglect of our prescribed duties in devotional service will not make us successful in the mission we have undertaken. It is our duty to follow in the footsteps of Dhruva Maharaj, for he was very determined. We should also be determined to finish our duties in executing devotional service in this life. We should not wait for another life to finish our job. See, very important, because if you compare Dhruva Maharaj's austerities, the kind of austerities he did, severe austerities. In 6 months he could see the Lord face to face. But to do that, he was standing in one place on his toes. He reduced his eating, and ultimately, he brought to complete stop. He was just breathing, and that's all. We are not doing any of those things. But that concession should not be taken granted. I should be very serious to follow that four regulative principles. I should be very serious to follow the fixed number of rounds that I am supposed to chant. Because the goal that we have, we don't realize that, the lofty goal that we have, it requires some preparations from our side. So that's why this determination is very important. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is our determination never goes in vain. So we spoke about what is the definition of determination, the importance of determination, and the third thing, our determination never goes in vain. Let's see this. This is the beautiful example which Prabhupada gives, the example of, in 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, what is the example which is given? The famous example for determination in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Example of the sparrow. Right, the sparrow whose eggs were taken away by the waves of the ocean, how he didn't give up. There was a sparrow who had laid some eggs on the shore of the ocean, and the eggs were taken away by the waves of the ocean. And the sparrow started to dry up the ocean with its small beak. It is impossible to dry the ocean with a small beak. But that determination attracted the mercy of Garuda. And Garuda came. Very nicely Prabhupada explains this. As far as determination, one should follow the example of the sparrow who lost her eggs in the waves of the ocean. A sparrow laid her eggs on the shore of the ocean, but the big ocean carried away the eggs on its waves. The sparrow became very upset and asked the ocean to return her eggs. The ocean did not even consider her appeal, so the sparrow decided to dry up the ocean. She began to pick up the water in her small beak, and everyone laughed at her for her impossible determination. The news of her activities spread, and at last Garuda, the gigantic bird carrier of Lord Vishnu, heard it. He became compassionate towards his small sister bird, and so he came to Sparrow, and he promised to help. Thus Garuda at once asked the ocean to return her eggs, lest he himself take up the work of the sparrow. The ocean was frightened at this, and returned the eggs. Thus the sparrow became happy by the grace of Garuda. Similarly, this is the whole point. The practice of yoga, especially bhakti yoga in Krishna consciousness, may appear to be a very difficult job. If anyone follows the principles with great determination, the Lord will surely help, for God helps those who help themselves. This may look difficult, 1.5 hours, busy with so many things, but if we are able to do it with determination, the Lord's mercy will come. The Lord will surely help, because God helps those who help themselves. We may while away our time, we may do some things, we may give thousands of brilliant excuses why we are not able to come. But what is the use? That one thing, if we have that determination to engage in devotional service, attracts the mercy of Krishna. The third point, the fourth point, determination in different modes. Very interestingly, Bhagavad Gita, if you read carefully, 17th chapter, it talks about the determination in 3 modes. In the mode of goodness, passion and ignorance. What is the determination in mode of goodness? What is the determination in mode of passion? And what is determination in the mode of ignorance? So he talks about this determination in 3 modes of material nature, and to sum up the same, determination in the mode of goodness means that the mind is fixed on Krishna. Determination in the mode of passion means the mind is fixed on sense enjoyment. And determination in the mode of ignorance means simply animalistic nature like oversleeping. Some people are determined. There was this one parent who was sharing that literally his daughter has to be dragged from the bed in the morning at 8 o'clock for the school or something. I don't want to come out of the bed, Papa. No, I want determined. I'll sleep more. That is determined to, the mind is, if the determined in the mode of passion means I want to just enjoy sense gratification. How on earth can I do something else? Different personalities exhibit different types of determination, because the material world is filled with 3 modes of material nature. These 3 modes always keep fighting for supremacy. Sometimes goodness overcomes passion and ignorance, and sometimes passion overcomes goodness and ignorance. So our determination also keeps flickering and changing, because the nature of the material world is temporary. From the scriptures, we see that Bali Maharaj was determined to give up everything for the service of Krishna. Prithu Maharaj was determined to perform 100 horse sacrifices. Durvasa Muni was determined to perform severe austerities. Parikshit Maharaj was determined to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and Kamsa was determined to kill Krishna. These are some examples just to illustrate how when the modes act, our determination also changes. We should be determined to execute the principle of devotional service. Our determination should not shake at any point of time. We may take so many vows, but unless we add austerity in keeping those vows, Krishna will not be pleased. We should try to do things in the right time, right place, and in the right circumstances. We should not be puffed up that I am chanting 16 rounds. We should always improve ourselves by taking a vow to chant our rounds early in the morning, than chanting at any time. Like this, we add austerities to our vows, and this pleases Krishna. This is very interesting. These are all from Prabhupada's purport. This is, I think, from Nectar of Devotion. We should not just be determined to execute the principle of devotional service, we should also try little austerity. Little austerity helps, not whimsically, as given in the scriptures, like finishing our rounds in the morning. Even if I have a busy day, if I am able to do that, it attracts the mercy of Krishna. Okay. Why are we not determined? What do you think? What is the answer? क्या होता है? श्रेय हमेशा डिस्ट्रैक्ट कर देता है. External distractions, okay. Have excuses for everything, okay. We don't value enough. Very, very good answer. It's actually a very important point. There are at least 5 reasons, maybe 6 I don't remember. And we will see how each one of them is so important in our life, which takes us away from the path of determination. The first one is our attachment to sense gratification. Verse in Bhagavad Gita which talks about this is Bhogeshwarya prasaktanam taya apahrata chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhi samadho na vidhiyate. If somebody is too attached to sense gratification, bhoga and aishwarya, enjoyment and opulence, bhoga and aishwarya. If my mind, my pursuit, my goal, my desire, my aspiration, my ambition is only to being attached to bhoga and aishwarya, then what happens is Maya, very what is the right word? In a deceptive manner, very slyly, it kidnaps our intelligence. Taya aparhata chetasam. Bhogeshwarya prasaktanam taya aparhata. When you are busy with these pursuits of life, of sense gratification and opulence, intelligence is kidnapped. Taya aparhata chetasam. Then the result of that, vyavasayatmika buddhi samadho na vidhiyate. The resolute determination in life doesn't come. In Bhagavad Gita 2.44, the Lord explains about this. The minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. And Srila Prabhupada has explained in various purports, the most important sense to be controlled is the tongue. The tongue does 2 things, and that is to vibrate and to taste. If we want to be determined in keeping our vows, then we should bring our senses under our control, and for that the tongue has to be controlled. The Quest for Enlightenment, there is a book which Prabhupada has written. Prabhupada writes, our tongue also wants very palatable dishes to taste. So Krishna, being very kind, has given you hundreds and thousands of palatable dishes, remnants of foods eaten by him. And if you simply make this determined vow, I shall not allow my tongue to taste anything not offered to Krishna, and shall always engage my tongue in chanting Hare Krishna, then all perfection is in your grasp. All perfection. 2 simple things. Don't eat anything not offered to Krishna, and always chant Hare Krishna. That's all. There is a verse which comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita which says, Jivera lalasai iti uti dhai, sisnodara parayana Krishna nahi pai. Jivera lalasai iti uti dhai. Because to satisfy the tongue, the taste buds, the palates, a person runs here and there. Some advertisement, something you find, news, restaurant, this thing and that thing, you run. Jivera lalasai iti uti dhai, sishnodara parayana. Because udara and this tongue, if somebody is just, we speak about in Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, Narayana parayana. Narayana parayana nakutaschana bibhyati. Swargapi apavargasu, that verse that comes. But the word is Narayana parayana. But here it is Sishnodara parayana, who's too attached about his belly and his tongue. Sishnodara parayana Krishna nahi pai. He doesn't get Krishna. So the first thing why we are not determined is our attachment to sense gratification. The second thing why we are not determined is our goal is not to be free from birth and death. It's a fact, which he was saying, that we take up to this process of devotion, but there is no seriousness, there is no determination. Why are you not able to chant? Why Prabhu, chanting is not happening? Because we are not serious about becoming freeing ourselves from birth and death. We don't understand what a rare gift has been given to us. So Prabhupada says, Lord Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, this is 7.29, if you remember in Kartik Purnima we were chanting this verse always. What is this verse? Anybody knows? Kartik month we were chanting one verse which has got the word Dridhavrata. Dridhavrata also in that. Very good. Partial marks. Yesham tu antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanda moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrata. So it's a very important thing which Krishna says, that intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. Unless we have the goal to be free from birth, death, old age and disease, we won't be fixed in our vows. If I am not understanding the evil of this birth, death, old age and disease, how painful, how miserable this is. That is why yasam tu antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanda moha nirmuktam bhajante mam dridhavrata. Only a person who understands that my goal of life is to get free from the cycle of birth and death will engage in my devotional service with determination. Otherwise it is not. Srila Prabhupada says that it is like sitting in a first class. Actually, this is a beautiful example which Prabhupada gives. In India, we have these trains, right? Huge, long trains will be there, sometimes 20, 25 coaches. Somebody is sitting in the first class compartment. It's usually expensive. If you are from a middle class family, you only aspire. Rich people with nice suitcase and all, they're entering. Hum to idhar sleeper mein pade hue. Imagine your desire is fulfilled one day. You are entering into the train which is standing in the first class. Nice, you are appreciating. Wow, so nice, no? Privacy hai, acha hai, comfortable, this thing is there, you are appreciating. But in this appreciation, you are not realizing that the train is not moving. You are so happy that you are sitting in that first class compartment. Beautiful, nice lights also, and everything is good. A nice privacy door is there, but you don't realize that the train is not moving. Prabhupada is saying this. We may have a very comfortable situation here or even in a heavenly planets, but for millions of years we will continue to remain in the material world because we are not moving towards the goal. We do not care in the midst of all the enjoyment whether my train is moving or not. We are simply busy in enjoying the comforts. This is what happens when some opulence, something comes, or somebody gets elevated. He is so busy in that material comforts, he forgets that the goal of life is to come out of the cycle of birth and death. Why this is like this, I don't have an explanation, but the next thing is we do not see our death. He was telling that we take it very lightly. Prabhupada gives a very beautiful example in this. All of you might have heard when somebody is given the capital punishment, right? When somebody is about to hang, what happens immediately before that? Nice food, right? Whatever your heart's content, it will be given to you. But imagine yourself in the shoes of that person who is going to be hanged. Nice food is there, but next moment you are going to be hanged. Will you relish that food? Same is our case. These examples, we do not see our death. We are so engrossed in this, wow, this is so nice, and so many pursuits we have. But imagine the Prabhupada writes actually, we do not appreciate that we are in the mouth of death. Srila Prabhupada tells we always forget that we have to leave this material world. Imagine a person who is condemned to death. There is a tradition that a person who is going to be hanged is offered a very nice feast. But at that point, would he like to enjoy? Because the feast will remind him that he is going to be hanged. But we do not see that we are also going to die sooner or later. So we do not realize the point that death is very near. So we are not determined. The next one is we are not free from sinful activities. So before this we saw that our goal is not to be free from birth and death. Then we saw that we are not seeing our death. Then we are not free from sinful activities. We continue doing sinful activities. Very interestingly, Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, who can be fixed in his service with determination. In the verse 7.28, he says, persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination, which we just chanted the verse. Although we have taken the path of devotional service, we have not still given full stop to our sinful activities. Srila Prabhupada says that anger and criticism are the worst sins to be avoided. Unless we stop the sinful activities, whatever vows we take, we cannot be determined in keeping them. So you may say somebody else is criticizing you, but don't get into that habit of criticizing others. Don't get angry. Anger and criticism are the ones which Prabhupada is writing here, has to be avoided. We will not be able to keep the vow of determination. Unless we stop the sinful activities, whatever vows we take, we cannot be determined in keeping them. This is also like this. I don't have a reason why it is like this. We have expectations in life. What does that mean? We want quick results. We do not want to tolerate the adverse circumstances. We take up to devotional service, and in exchange for devotional service, we expect that things should always remain comfortable. The result is that expectation kills devotional service. Our duty is to simply render devotional service. It is the duty of Krishna to protect, and we should not expect that Krishna should provide protection. Whatever Krishna does for us, we always remain satisfied. If we expect anything in return for devotional service, then we won't be able to sustain our vows. We won't be able to relish devotional service. This is what happens with many people. They don't really relish devotional service because there is always an expectation. I am doing this, oh Lord, you have to protect me in this particular way. That expectation kills devotional service. So most important thing is then what should we do? How can we become determined? And I'll take one example. Okay, it's already 8:40. Should I continue or should I stop? Continue. I'll take maybe another 10 minutes. But this is the most important thing. What should we do? And there is a very nice practical example which Bhagavatam gives. And the word determination is used by Prabhupada so brilliantly to see how we can take inspiration from that one incident. Anybody wants to guess which incident of Bhagavatam might talk about determination pretty nicely? Determined to hear. Parikshit Maharaj was determined to hear, and his determination to hear was tested by Sukadeva Goswami at various times. That is there, but doesn't talk explicitly about his determination to hear. Anything else? Dhruva Maharaj's determination we read. Prahlad Maharaj's determination to remember the Lord. Okay. Bali Maharaj's determination to to keep his words. Okay. That also I mentioned. I'm not mentioned so far, that example. Khatwanga Maharaj's determination that one moment is left to engage in devotions. Actually, the example is very common example. If we talk about lofty people like Parikshit, Bali Maharaj, Prahlad, Khatwanga, you think, they are Bali, Khatwanga, मैं तो छोटा कली हूँ, क्या करूँ, कहाँ से होगा? So the example that is given is that of Ajamil. Ajamil was not very great, exalted. He committed all sinful activities. But the moment the Vishnudutas came in his life changed. Actually, the Ajamila's pastime has something very, very interesting to offer, which we don't see. He became determined to follow the vows after that. Very inspiring. Let's just pay some attention to this. Okay, this is always like this. I'm not sure why it is like this. How to become determined in devotional service. So this is from the Ajamila's instruction. The word determination is used many times in those purports by Prabhupada. I picked up some. First chapter of 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam relates the history of Ajamila, who was considered a greatly sinful man, but was liberated when 4 order carriers of Vishnu came to rescue him from the hands of the order carriers of Yamaraj because Ajamila chanted the holy name Narayana, even though he was calling out to his son named Narayana. The Vishnudutas released Ajamila from the ropes of the Yamadutas, explaining the glories of the holy name, and left for their own abode. Ajamila could understand how fortunate he was to have chanted the holy name of Narayana at the end of his life. Indeed, he could realize the full significance of this good fortune. Having thoroughly understood the discussion between Yamadutas and the Vishnudutas, he became a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He lamented very much for how very sinful he had been, and he condemned himself again and again. Having been released from the nooses of Yamaraja's servants, the Brahmana Ajamila, now free from fear, came to his senses, and from the wonderful verses which he spoke from 6.2.32 to 37, we understand that in order for us to be determined in devotional service, the following 5 things are required. Now I'll talk about the 5 things. Actually, this is in the chapter summary, because towards the end, Prabhupada writes for each chapter some summary. This is all from the summaries of the chapter. The 5 things is not mentioned, that I am putting it here. There are 5 things that we can do to remain determined in our devotional service. What are those 5 things? First thing. Why it is like this? We have to first realize that we are very much insignificant as compared to Krishna. First thing we have to realize, actually, what is our position? And very beautifully Prabhupada explains all these things. In Srimad Bhagavatam, verse 6.2.32, Ajamil says, I am certainly most abominable and unfortunate to have merged in an ocean of sinful activities. But nevertheless, because of my previous spiritual activities, I could see those 4 exalted personalities who came to rescue me. Now I feel exceedingly happy because of their visit. Then in the next verse he says, were it not for my past devotional service, how could I, a most unclean keeper of prostitute, have gotten an opportunity to chant the holy name of Vaikuntapati when I was just ready to die? Certainly it could not have been possible. Thus we should realize our most insignificant, abominable position first. Actually, we have no understanding of our insignificant and abominable position. Like Ajamila, we have done so many sinful activities. This life, previous lives. Somehow, Ajamila was fortunate to hear this importance of holy name in the association of devotees. We got this from Prabhupada. But we forget our insignificant position and we take it granted. We take it very, very lightly. Vows are very flimsy. Second one, we have to realize that Krishna is very merciful and he has so mercifully given us the opportunity to perform devotional service. Again, 6.2.34, Prabhupada is writing, I am a shameless cheater who has killed his Brahminical culture. Indeed, I am sin personified. This is Ajamil saying. Where am I in comparison to the all-auspicious chanting of the holy name of Lord Narayana? He says that I am so sinful that I am not even eligible to touch the holy name with my tongue. That should be our mood when we chant the holy names. We cannot take it granted. Actually, millions of people are there in this world because of their sinful activities. They are not able to even chant. By some causeless mercy of Lord, we have been given this. That if we forget what my past life was, what I was before coming, and now that I have gotten this process of chanting, I lose value and I take it so granted. No, it should not be. I'm so sinful that I'm not even eligible to touch the holy name with my tongue. That should be our mood when we chant the holy names. We are carrying so many sins. Our mood should be that Krishna has given the opportunity so kindly to chant the holy names. But many times we chant with feeling as if we are doing a great favor to the Lord by chanting his names. When devotees ask, Kire Baba, chanting ho raha hai? Kar raha hu na bro, 2 round ho raha hai aajkal. Bahut pressure hai, PhD chal raha hai. Means what, as if we are doing some favor on the Lord, right? That is what is our mood. But many times we chant with the feeling as if we are doing a great favor to the Lord by chanting his names. Srila Prabhupada beautifully writes in his purport 6.2.34, those engaged in broadcasting the holy name of Narayana, Krishna, through the Krishna consciousness movement should always consider what our position was before we came and what it is now. We should never forget that. We should always remind ourselves. We had fallen into abominable lives as meat eaters, drunkards, and woman hunters who performed all kinds of sinful activities. But now we have been given the opportunity to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Therefore, we should always appreciate this opportunity. Now, the next line is very important. By the grace of the Lord, we are opening many branches, and we should use this good fortune to chant the holy name of the Lord and serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. We must be conscious of the difference between our present and past conditions and should always be very careful not to fall from the most exalted life. Very important thing. Actually, these are things which Ajamil has exhibited in his life. That Krishna is merciful, and somehow Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is even more merciful, and I have been given this facility to chant. Next one. Sorry, not the next one. Srila Prabhupada further writes, by the grace of the Lord, so many centers are opened, and we should use this good fortune to chant the holy names of the Lord. So whenever we come to the program, as soon as we reach the doorstep, you come to the temple, you've reached the doorstep, or you're entering into the temple premises, like it happens in ISKCON Bangalore. The moment you enter into that, you can hear that powerful chanting of Srila Prabhupada's Hare Krishna mantra. So Prabhupada is writing, as soon as we enter the doorstep of the temple, we should start chanting and should go on until we leave the place. Not some gossiping about somebody else. वो आया नहीं, वो देखा नहीं, उसने मेरे को बोला. All these things we should not do. We should realize the opportunity we have got. We should try at least this much, if not more, Prabhupada is writing. We should realize the opportunity we have got. In the Nectar of Devotion, it is mentioned, in the Mahabharata, Krishna says, when I was away from Draupadi, she cried with words, Hey Govinda, this call for me has put me in her debt, and that indebtedness is gradually increasing in my heart. This statement by Krishna gives evidence of how one can please the Supreme Lord simply by addressing him, Hey Krishna, Hey Govinda. The Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is also simply an address to the Lord and his energy. So to anyone who's constantly engaged in addressing the Lord and his energy, we can imagine how much the Supreme Lord is obliged. Prabhupada is writing because once, Draupadi just called out, Hey Govinda, Krishna felt, indebted. So if we chant properly his names constantly, how much he'll be, obliged. It is impossible for the Lord to ever forget such a devotee. It is clearly stated in this verse that anyone who addresses the Lord immediately attracts the attention of the Lord, who always remains obliged to him. The next one is, we must pray to the Lord to remain fixed. In the Srimad Bhagavatam verse, the next one, 6.2.35, Ajamil says, I am such a sinful person, but since I have now gotten this opportunity, I must completely control my mind, life, and senses, and always engage in devotional service, so that I may not fall again into the deep darkness and ignorance of material life. And Prabhupada writes, every one of us should have this determination. We have been elevated to an exalted position by the mercy of Krishna and the spiritual master. And if we remember that this is a great opportunity and pray to Krishna that we will not fall again, our lives will be successful. They're all very important things. Actually, we people think, okay, he chanted once Narayana and he went back. No, he was very determined not to follow this sinful activities again. Very careful. So now I've gotten this opportunity. I must completely control my mind, life, and senses, and always engage in devotional service. If we remember this is a great opportunity and pray to Krishna that we will not fall again, our lives will be successful. Not only should we execute our devotional service and keep our vows, but at the same time we should keep praying to Krishna, Krishna, I don't want to fall again into this material world. I want to be engaged in devotional service. That is what we do when we chant the holy names. Very powerful, this feeling, if you have the value for this holy name, and if you have this fear always that I don't want to fall again into this material world, I don't want to get carried away by this, attractions which everybody is tormented, baffled, moghasa, vichetasa, they are bewildered. I don't want to get into that. Then our call for that holy name will be very, very sincere, very genuine one. The next one, we should take up the vows to please Krishna, the fourth one. So again, in the next verses, we should not keep meditating on the point that I am sinful, I am not eligible, I am unqualified. This is another extreme where people go. मेरे बस का ही बात नहीं है, मैं तो दारू पी के बड़ा हुआ हूँ, मेरे से नहीं होगा. And they condemn themselves. Self-pity. No. You don't have to be, you don't have to curse yourself. From Ajamila, we see that he is taking the vow that now I must completely control my mind, life, and senses, and always engage in devotional service. Ajamila had the faith that Krishna will protect him in his devotional service. The moment we take the vow with faith and confidence, Krishna reveals himself. As Krishna destroys the darkness of ignorance in the heart, Ajamila speaks the following wonderful verse in the Bhagavatam 36 and 37, 6.2, 36 and 37. Because of identifying oneself with the body, one is subjected to desires for sense gratification. And thus one engages in many different types of pious and impious action. This is what constitutes material bondage. Now I shall disentangle myself from my material bondage, which has been caused by the Supreme Personality of Godhead's illusory energy, asuram prakritim, ashritaha. By the illusory energy of the Lord, I've been in this bondage. Now I shall disentangle myself from the material bondage, which has been caused by the Supreme Personality of Godhead's illusory energy in the form of a woman. Being a most fallen soul, I was victimized by the illusory energy and have become like a dancing dog led around by a woman's hand. Now I shall give up all lusty desires and free myself from this illusion. I shall become a merciful, well-wishing friend to all living entities and always absorb myself in Krishna consciousness. By saying that I shall become a merciful, well-wishing friend to all the living entities, he means that I will preach the message. This is the only way we can be a well-wishing friend. And Prabhupada says that we should be determined to spread Krishna consciousness and deliver everyone. If we have that vow, certainly we are going to be delivered. For example, if I desire to lift the book, as I lift the book, my hand is also getting lifted. I do not have to do any extra endeavor to lift the hand. These are very powerful examples. If we endeavor to preach rigorously, unconsciously we are also getting elevated. So Ajamila has not taken a vow to simply execute devotional service. He is taking another important vow that I will preach. Srila Prabhupada writes in the wonderful and meaningful purport, in the purport, that this should be the standard of determination for all Krishna conscious person. See how many times Prabhupada is writing the word determination. This should be the standard of determination for all Krishna conscious persons. A Krishna conscious person should free himself from the clutches of Maya, and he should always be compassionate to all others suffering in those clutches. The activities of the Krishna consciousness movement are meant not only for oneself, but for others also. This is the perfection of Krishna consciousness. One who is interested in his own salvation is not as advanced in Krishna consciousness as one who feels compassion for others and who therefore propagates the Krishna consciousness movement. Such an advanced devotee will never fall down, for Krishna will give him special protection. That is the sum and substance of the Krishna consciousness movement, this preaching. Everyone is like a play toy in the hands of illusory energy and is acting as he moves him. One should come to Krishna consciousness to release oneself and also to release others. Very, very hope-giving, very powerful purport. That is what Krishna is telling, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. Always, sharing, always trying to spread this message. As Prabhupada is giving that example, the moment we are trying to lift the book, our hand is also getting lifted. And the last one is associating with the devotees. 6.2.38, simply because I chanted the holy name of the Lord in the association of devotees, my heart is now becoming purified. There is a need, there is a reason to associate with the devotees. Even chanting in association of devotees has a special effect. Therefore, I shall not fall victim again to the false lures of material sense gratification, now that I have become fixed in the absolute truth. Henceforward, I shall not identify myself with the body. I shall give up false conceptions of I and mine and fix my mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. Krishna, while describing the Mahatmas, describes, this is what is quoted there, Satadam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrata namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. The potency of associating with such devotees is that we become determined to follow the principles of devotional service. We cannot do it alone. There are more things, but I'll stop here and see if you have any questions or comments. I've already taken a lot of time. Any thoughts, questions? Too much? Okay, you were there, awake, alive, asleep. It's a very powerful subject, very, very powerful. If we just meditate, see, none of us, nobody can make you elevate in your Krishna consciousness. Nobody can do it unless you yourself feel determined within to do the right things. How do you feel determination to do the right things? Unless you understand and look at those principles very closely, introspect, and then try to apply those things in life. Because otherwise, devotional service also becomes some other material, mundane activities which people do. They go and associate with different people, talk some things. It can become like that. But this is very special, very, very special. Bhagavad Gita is special. Process of Krishna consciousness is special. Srila Prabhupada is special, and we are fortunate that this knowledge is available. Yet we take it lightly, and we while away our time. We'll stop here. Granthara Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.